Welcome to Cribwolf Talks. Today we're excited to present Nadia Venafro, a representative for multi-unit housing solutions at the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, known as CMHC. Nadia delivered an engaging presentation at the Intentional Community Consortium Housing Forum, hosted by KW Habilitation and Caris Disability Services at KW's office in Kitchener-Waterloo, Ontario, on October 8, 2024. Nadia has been at the forefront of supporting affordable housing initiatives across Canada, and she's here to share invaluable insights on the latest funding sources and opportunities for developers, as well as important updates from CMHC. With her expertise in navigating government programs and fostering growth in multi-unit housing, Nadia will help us better understand how to leverage these resources for impactful community development. Take a listen.
More affordable housing for those with developmental disabilities is something that I would love to be able to continue working with your organizations to do. There's a lot going on at CMHC. I've been with the organization a long time, so I've seen a number of changes, but it's over the last 7 years with, or even less, with the introduction of the National Housing Strategy, where I've seen an abundance of change, and it's all for the better to address the housing shortage, the affordable housing shortage, but to provide groups like yourselves the opportunity to access the much needed funding that's required to develop affordable housing. So with that, I will, of course, it's the wrong button. Okay, here we go. I'm going to highlight several changes, some of which are most relevant to your particular groups. But in general, there are changes to the entire affordable housing delivery spectrum of programs that we have at CMHC. You will have remembered, or you might remember, that in the fall of last year, we had a fall budget. The fall economic statement talked about some of the changes that the federal government was going to put in place with regards to some of CMHC's programs. So we had some name changes that happened to our direct lending programs, like the Affordable Housing Fund, which was previously known as CMHC's National Housing Strategy flagship program, the co-investment. And we also had a name change to our rental construction loan program, which is now often referred to as the apartment construction loan program. So there's a number of different programs that I will highlight in today's session. I'm going to really touch on some of the more salient points. There's a lot of information behind there. I'm available if there's additional context you'd like to have, but I did want to be able to at least pinpoint some of the major changes that have taken place or that will be taking place very shortly. This Affordable Housing Fund is our flagship program, as I mentioned. This is a program that allows for both contribution, forgivable loan, and repayable loan. It is a loans first program, but it is a program that allows for a variety of housing types along the housing continuum. So from shelters to affordable housing, purpose-built rental, and that includes supportive housing, etc. This also provides the opportunity to not only access funding to create net new units under our new construction stream, but it also allows for funding that will provide support to repair and renew existing social housing or community housing. As part of our national housing strategy, we document our progress with regards to not only the funding that we spend, but also the number of units that that funding has created. So as of June 2024, in the progress report that was released on Place to Call Home, this is where we're at. So we've committed $9.4 billion. We've created 37,033 new units, and we've repaired 165 plus units across the country. What I want to highlight here is the progress that we have achieved with respect to a target within CMHC's National Housing Strategy, which many of you were the driving force behind in the 2,400 unit count that's included as part of the National Housing Strategy target. Based on the report that was released in June of 2024, we are nationally at 1,742 units that were dedicated to persons with disabilities. This information, by the way, is publicly available on the website. You can connect with cmhc.ca in order to get redirected to the Place Call Home. But we do quarterly updates on our progress with regards to the National Housing Strategy. You might recognize the project on the screen. That's the Lou Fruitman Rena residence, a recipient of the Affordable Housing Fund, a project we worked closely on with Gary and Brian and a number of other RENA employees to get up and running. And it's a great facility, and I'm sure most of you have had the opportunity to tour it. If you haven't, I would strongly encourage you to connect with Gary and Brian. It's a great place. So as I said, there's a number of changes that are taking place at CMHC. In April of this year, at spring budget, we had a number of initiatives identified within the budget announcement that included reforms or enhancements, as we like to refer to them, with regards to our program. So we're going to see quite a number of these changes happen, some of which have already happened, others that we anticipate will be happening by the end of 2024. So lots more to come. You may recall we had three rounds of the program called the Rapid Housing Initiative. Those were direct contribution. They were extremely competitive. They were straight contribution dollars for the development of housing. We are introducing what is going to be called the Rapid Housing Stream. It will fall as a substream under the Affordable Housing Fund. It will look and feel quite differently. So stay tuned for more specifics as to how that will work. It will be an ongoing offering and not just a limited time application period that we'll have available there. So there's funding that's been earmarked for that particular substream of the Affordable Housing Fund. In addition to that, by the end of 2024, we're making changes to the energy efficiency and accessibility requirements under our new construction. So we will be looking for the 2020 building code being met as opposed to the existing 2015 or 2017 building codes that are currently in place. We're also expanding that to include the Rick Hansen Foundation Accessibility Certification. So if a project is looking to achieve that level of certification, we will accept that as part of the accessibility requirements. So under our repair and renew stream, so this is a subset of the Affordable Housing Fund, which targets the renovations and repairs of existing communities / social housing. So in September of this year, our accessibility and energy efficiency requirements are no longer required. You may remember there's 3 social outcomes that are typically tagged to each of our direct lending programs: affordability, accessibility, and energy efficiency. Affordability requirements will remain, so you have to at least meet the minimum affordability requirements. But in terms of the energy efficiency and accessibility requirements, those are no longer mandatory requirements. I will say, though, that in terms of prioritizing those projects that we will support and fund for renovations, you will score and you'll get more incentive if you include those specific repairs within your project application. Okay. We also still have the contribution-only stream for only our repair and renew funding applications. So if you're looking to access funding to fill a funding gap that you have in a repair project that you're undertaking, 40% or less, you have to have the majority of the funding secured by other sources and be able to confirm that at the time of application. And you're coming to CMHC just to fill that funding gap, we will consider contribution only to bridge that gap for you. Seed funding. I know that Tim mentioned this earlier in his presentation as well. This is funding that's made available to those projects for the soft costs, so the pre-development costs, getting you to the point where you will be ready to access permanent financing, construction financing, and takeout financing. We get annual or fiscal budgets allocated to this program. Currently, it runs under two streams: contribution, which is a grant, and also a interest-free repayable loan. Depending on the size and scope of your project, you have up to $150,000 available to you under contribution and up to $350,000 available in the interest-free repayable loan portion of the program. Our contribution dollars that were allocated this fiscal year have been fully exhumed, so they've all been accounted for. We do have interest-free repayable loan funding available. Now, most people are concerned, how am I going to repay this funding? Well, if you are going to develop your project, this funding is part and parcel of your pro forma for construction. So it could effectively get repaid by AHF, so Affordable Housing Fund, new construction dollars. Okay. I'm going to go back for a moment and just highlight here, with our seed funding program, you really need to be at a point where you have done a financial feasibility to identify whether or not the project that you're looking to develop is financially viable. So there has to be a general idea of what the building's going to look like, how many units are going to be part of that development, what are your rent levels going to be like, those kinds of things. So working with consultants like Tim to identify what the financial feasibility of that project will look like will inform the application when you come to CMHC for seed funding. The other program, or it's not really a program, it's a resource tool that I think is beneficial to mention at this point, is for those individual groups that still are at the really preliminary stages of what they want to do. You might want to consider looking at the Community Housing Transformation Center for assistance in trying to map out what your project could look like. There is a link on our website as well in the resources tab that will allow you to find out what the contact information is, but I think it's worth mentioning as there are some of you who didn't lift up your hands, identifying that you're ready to move forward with a development. I'm going to go over this one really quickly, but I think it's important to note as well because it is the other direct lending program that CMHC offers. This is the apartment construction loan program. It started, as did the Affordable Housing Fund, with the National Housing Strategy back in 2018. Since 2018, it has received additional contributions federally to the budget, to this particular budget line. It has been extremely successful. It is a competitive program, but it too is evolving as we move forward. With the additional funding that's been attributed to this program, there's been an extension to how long CMHC will offer the apartment construction loan program, and it'll run to 2031-32. So this is low-cost loans. It does not have a contribution. It's all repayable. It's for sustainable rental apartment construction projects across the country. The initial program itself is for standard apartments, and it was for the private sector. And we've seen quite a number of private sector developers who have worked with partners like nonprofit organizations and social service providers to enter into partnerships. Tim touched on partnerships working with existing developers, either in a condo strata type format. There's a number of different models that have been used by private developers working with nonprofit organizations and incorporating those units within their projects. With this, there are enhancements to this one as well. In place now, as I mentioned, the program extension is until 2031-32. There's, with that increase of budget dollars, there's an increase in the number of units that we'd like to see developed. And we've removed a 10% requirement, which was a part of the pro forma. And now we're going to see some new changes take effect, which would include extension of loan terms. Right now, there is only one loan term of 10 years. And then the idea is that those loans, once they come up for maturity, they would be going to a conventional lender for renewal. Extension of access to financing. So not only are we going to be including just standard apartment type units, this will also be open to those that are developing student housing and seniors housing. And there is the opportunity to approach development by way of multiple sites, so from a portfolio perspective. So more to come on the changes that are going to be reflective under this particular program as well, so stay tuned. There's a newsletter that you can sign up for on cmhc.ca, which will allow you to automatically receive the updates to any of our programs, as well as any new research that CMHC issues and new programs that become available. So I would encourage you all to sign up for that if you haven't done so already. This is something new that CMHC introduced in June of this year. This is called the Co-operative Housing Development Program. This is the first time in a number of decades that CMHC has put money towards the expansion of cooperative housing. We had a window that closed in September 15th. We had an overwhelming response by both existing and newly formed cooperative housing groups for funding that mirrors the Affordable Housing Fund as well. So this is for new construction of units. This is not equity type co-ops. This is not home ownership type co-ops. This is strictly rental. This too was also mentioned by Tim with respect to funding that's available at the municipal level. CMHC introduced the Housing Accelerator Fund, which will allow successful recipients of funding at the municipal level to come up with new ways of encouraging and expediting the development of affordable housing. Jamie informed me earlier and was also mentioned by Tim. KW received funding from this initiative through the local municipality. In round one of the Housing Accelerator Fund, there were 24 municipalities across Ontario that received funding under the HAF program. They are all listed on our website. Again, encourage you in terms of accessing available funding that might be applicable to your project, reaching out to the local municipalities to see what in fact their plans include and what level of funding you could potentially have access to for your up and coming projects. We had a round two that was only open to those round one recipients that did not receive funding. So they had an opportunity to come back to the table, repitch a new and improved version of their plan in order to gain access to funding. We're hoping that we'll have those successful application or successful recipients known to us shortly. So stay tuned on who those individuals are. But it's funding that will be available over the next 3 years. This is where I wanted to spend a little bit more time on with respect to our program delivery, the state of readiness that we anticipate applicants to be at when they come to CMHC. We talked about seed funding. We talked about preparing your project to be shovel ready. And I think Tim alluded to this in his presentation as well. The state of readiness with respect to coming into CMHC, either for the apartment construction loan program, if you're partnering with somebody, or the Affordable Housing Fund, which if you're coming to CMHC as a direct applicant is probably the best program stream for your projects. But there is a state of readiness that we expect, and that is that you're pretty much shovel ready. So you have a cost consultant in place. You're at the drawing stage where you almost have complete drawings. You've rezoned if you need rezoning of your property. You're in site plan approval. So it's pretty much getting towards the finish line, and this is where you're securing your financing. So understanding what your capital stack is, who else is contributing to the project itself from a capital standpoint. So I'm thinking of, when you say state of readiness, we need either a Class B and a Class A cost estimate. And I know those are technical terms, but you'll have a clear understanding of where you need to be in order to come to CMHC. That's not to say that we can't guide you through your process. There's a number of client solutions representatives across the Ontario region. In fact, that team has grown as well, just given the need to continue working with a number of folks on the ground to get them to the point where they can then come to CMHC. This program did not receive an extension, not yet anyway. I'm hopeful that we'll see some announcement in the very near future to indicate that not only additional funding has been put towards this program, but that we will have an opportunity to continue offering it as a direct lending program. This is both a forgivable loan and repayable loan program, as I mentioned earlier. It has a 20-year term, 2 10-year terms, and it has a 50-year amortization. So when you're coming to CMHC at the point where you're ready to apply for financing, The reason why we require you to be at that level of project readiness is because we have an expedited process where we want to be able to get the projects through from application to funding, so advancing stage, within a defined timeline. So we've had issues in the past where projects have come in earlier, and this is why we introduced this expedited application process, and they were stuck either at the zoning stage or the site plan stage. And so we had earmarked funding, and it was just sitting there, and the project may or may not get to a point where it would fund. So in order for us to ensure that we're earmarking funding for projects that will make it through to fruition, we are requiring a certain state of readiness for the project to be at.
That concludes today's insightful conversation with Nadia Venafro from the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. Nadia's deep dive into the funding opportunities and updates from CMHC provides a clearer roadmap for those navigating the affordable housing landscape. With the resources and programs she shared, it's easier to see how developers can access critical support to create sustainable, inclusive communities across Canada. A huge thank you to Nadia for her time and expertise, and thank you all for tuning in to Cribwolf Talks. We look forward to bringing you more expert perspectives in future episodes. If you have missed any of our shows, find us on YouTube and like and subscribe Cribwolf Talks. Let's help those who need our help.